Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to explore the organizational structure for materials management in SAP S/4HANA. Let's start by navigating to transaction code SPRO, click on sub-reference IMG, and here we navigate into enterprise structure, definition, and over here you can see materials management. However, before we configure the materials management over here, we must configure a so-called plant. The plant is not defined in materials management, but over here in logistics general. There you can see define plant. Let's click on this one. The plant is nothing else than an operating area or branch within our company code. You can think of a plant as kind of a production site, for instance. So all we need to do is we need to click on new entries. Then we need to provide a key, which could be up to 4 characters and alphanumeric. Let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. A name and a name too if necessary. And then over here you can see some of the information is grayed out. We could assign here a country or city code, but this is only relevant in certain countries such as the US, and a factory calendar to define our working hours. If we scroll down a bit, you can see that all the other fields are grayed out because here in this section I can click on address and then maintain the address details such as the country, the street, as well as house number, the postal code, and also the city. Then I can click here on copy. You can see nothing changed over here, however, now it's stored here in the address information section. Then we can click on save. Now let's go back and back again. Now we can concentrate here on the materials management part, and you can see we can define a so-called storage location. So let's click on this one. We must define a plant first because the storage location is always defined with regard to a plant. So let's select the plant we just created. And then we hit on enter. And now we can define here one or even several storage locations and assign them to the plant. So a storage location is nothing else than a place where our stock is physically kept within our plant. So for instance, just imagine a huge production site such as a car producing company. And within this so-called plant, we have different storage locations. One for our tires, another one for our engine, and so on. So this is what we mean when we talk about a storage location. We can click here on new entries, then we can just create location, assign a name, and here say whether it's valid, no longer valid, or deprecated. However, the validity will not hinder a person from posting values to this location. It's just that when we set it here to no longer valid or deprecated, it won't be displayed in the input help. So when we utilize here, this help functionality won't be displayed. Okay, then we can assign here addresses to our storage locations. So we can select an entry, then double click here, click on new entries, and then we can define here numbers in sequence. So we could actually define multiple numbers and thereby assign several addresses to our storage location. So far so good. We will now hit on save. You can see this pop-up window appeared, and here also we need to define our address like this. That's basically it. And we need to do it for all of the numbers we just defined. Let me just scroll down a bit here. You can see and edit address to, like that. And that's basically it. Now let's go back a couple of more times. And by now we defined the plant and also we assigned a storage location to the plant. As said, we could assign multiple storage locations to the same plant. Now next off we will define the so-called purchasing organization. A purchasing organization is responsible for all of our purchasing activities. So before I hit on this button over here, I would always recommend you to display here the info help for this customizing entry. Let's just click on this one. This is because the purchasing organization has many dependencies. So as you can see, I will not go into detail of all of those, but you should really carefully read this. However, just so that you know, we will focus here on this section. Once we defined such a purchasing organization, it can be assigned to several company codes. In case we have a group-wide purchasing where we have one purchasing organization responsible for many company codes. Also, we could define a purchasing organization and assign it to exactly one company code. So meaning that for each company code, we would create a separate purchasing organization. This would be a company-specific purchasing. We could even say later on that a purchasing organization is not at all assigned to a company code. However, you will also see this because each of the plants we defined, we must assign to company codes. However, you will also see in a second what is written over here, because we could also say, due to the obligatory assignment of our plants to our company codes, which we will see in a second as said, and the assignment of our purchasing organization to a plant, there is an indirect assignment of our purchasing organization to a company code as well. You will see this in a second as said. as you can see over here, a purchasing organization must always be assigned to a plant. Okay, let's close this one and actually hit on enter here. You can see I could click on new entries, provide purchasing organization description, also up to 4 characters in alphanumeric, and also the validity, which is again only relevant for the input help. Click on save. And that's basically it. Now we defined our plant, we defined the storage locations under the plant, and also we created the purchasing organization. Now it's time to actually link all of those and also link them to the company code. Let's go back again, out of the definition and into the assignment section. There we navigate to materials management. And here you can see the first step is assign purchasing organization to company code. Let's click on this one. As said, we have many options over here. We could say for our new purchasing organization, either we assign it to a company code or we do not assign it to a company code. Both is possible. As said, I could assign here a company code to a purchasing organization, or I could even say that I don't want to assign the company code to the purchasing organization, but as the purchasing organization must be assigned to a plant and the plant must be assigned to a company code, there could also be an indirect linkage between the two. For now, I will assign here a company code like this. Okay, hit on save and go back. And next off, we assign our purchasing organization to a plant. So as said, we can click here on new entries, then provide our purchasing organization that we created and provide the plant we created. Like this. And as said, I could also choose here the same purchasing organization and assign it to another plant. This is also possible. Let me just delete this one. Save. Let's go back and back again. Next off, you can see a step called Assign Standard Purchasing Organization to Plant. Let's click on this one. Here, in case that several purchasing organizations procure for one and the same plant, we can define one of them as the so-called Standard Purchasing Organization. And this is actually used for special processes such as the pipeline procurement, consignment, or stock transfer. By the way, I explained you the pipeline procurement and also the consignment in other videos. I will just leave you the links in the description of this one, so make sure to check them out afterwards. This is important because later on in the source determination for our stock transfer and also for the consignment process, the system will automatically utilize the standard purchasing organization we defined over here for our plant, in this case 1, 2, 3, 4. We will take the same. Okay, we will click on save and hit on back. And next off, you can see assign purchasing organization to reference purchasing organization. Let's select this one, click on new entries, and over here we can assign the purchasing organization we created to a reference purchasing organization like that. This is not obligatory. However, if we utilize this feature, then the reference purchasing organization could, for instance, negotiate a contract with the supplier that can also be used by other purchasing organizations. Also, this can be utilized if, for instance, we want to inherit the price determination of this reference purchasing organization for our purchasing organization. So the way the prices are calculated in the end. Please be aware that we can assign several of our purchasing organizations to one and the same reference purchasing organization. However, we should not assign one of our purchasing organizations to multiple of those reference purchasing organizations. There's also here a checkmark called release order, which would specify that release orders issued against our contracts set up by our reference purchasing organization would be allowed. By the way, such a release order is nothing else than a document used to request from our supplier part for the total quantity or value of goods or services detailed in the so-called outline agreement. And then we have here a conditions tab, so meaning that if we hit this indicator, the conditions for our price determination for the reference purchasing organization can be accessed by the purchasing organization we assigned to this reference purchasing organization. Okay, that's basically it. Let's now go back. By now, you know that here in the definition section under logistics general, we will define our plant. Then we will go to the materials management and define one or even multiple storage locations for the plant. We will maintain our purchasing organization, and afterwards in our assignment section, we can assign a purchasing organization to a company code. We must assign our purchasing organization to a plant, and we have the option to assign a standard purchasing organization to a plant, as well as assign a purchasing organization to a reference purchasing organization. Okay, this marks the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If so, then please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. See you next time.